How do I feel about denominations being a concept in general? Whew. That is another good question. Should you worry about picking a wrong one to pick? Okay. Probably not. So, overall, I'll start with denominations. I have mixed feelings about denominations. I see good in that it allows people who have minor disagreements between other Christians to get together still and worship and grow and serve and spread the gospel together as a united front. I see that as a good thing, because community unity is a huge factor in Christianity and the spread of the gospel. And so I think it is great that when people have there's primary theologies, secondary theologies, and tertiary theologies. Primary theologies are that Jesus Christ is God. He lived the perfect life to take away our sins. He lived the perfect life, died on the cross, rose again to save us from our sins. That is a primary theology. So most denominations come from disagreements in secondary or tertiary theologies. You may already know this, but I'm giving context. So secondary or tertiary theologies would be baptism. Do you baptize at birth? Maybe not baptism. Baptism might be a tertiary theology. Baptism as salvific. Baptism saves, as in it is a requirement for salvation. That, I think, would be a secondary theology. Anyway, all that to say, I think that most denominations split on secondary and tertiary theologies. So they agree Jesus is who he says he is, who he said he is, and that he is the only way to heaven, that we receive grace through faith, not by works, so that no man can boast. But they disagree on some of the other stuff. I think that reason allows for denominations to still be effective without causing more dissension. So you can worship the way you feel called to, and you can worship the way you feel called to. You can do this thing that isn't as critical to the spread of the gospel. You can do this thing that isn't as critical to the spread of the gospel. And you can get along, but you don't have to worship together, because that could cause tension and disunity. So I think that's good. It's weird having so many. I live in an area where there's so many churches. There's a point where if you're at a stoplight, you see a sign for this church that's having services going right, this sign for a church that's having services going left. That feels like it looks to the outside as disunity. Don't like that. That's kind of an aside. Denominations in general, I'm fine with. It can get a little rough when some of them specifically think they're the only denomination that is actually Christian. That gets a little off. But generally, most denominations, as long as they are preaching the Bible and preaching the Bible accurately, go for it. I think it's fine. Should you worry about picking a wrong one? No. Here's why. It is more important for you to find a particular church that is preaching the Bible accurately and living the Bible in their lives than it is to pick the right denomination. You can find a Presbyterian church that is less biblical in their preaching and less biblical in how they're living than a Episcopalian church that is very different but is biblical, if that makes sense. So focus more on the preaching and the teaching and how the people are living rather than the specific denomination. Denomination, for the most part, is a bit more, I'm gonna say it, is a bit more like, what flavor of worship do you want? What flavor of worship, what flavor of teaching, what environment do you want to be in?